Hello my loyal companions, welcome back to the channel and to another complete rogue guide. Today we're going to be having a little look at Dallas. We'll be going in depth into his weapons, abilities and perks. I'll then give you an upgrade priority for him so you know exactly what to buy when you're in game, and then I'll be giving you some tips about his playstyle. If you do go on to enjoy the video, make sure you drop that like and subscribe to the channel. For now, let's get into it. Dallas is a longer range rogue due to the weapons he has. He's good at holding down longer angles of sight and has quite deadly weapons with a really high amount of damage, although slow fire rate. He's great for gaining intelligence for your team with his ability and has a snowball effect because of his passive, which we'll get into now. His passive is recharge, and whenever he gets a down, he's able to reuse his ability again. This is very unique. Some rogues have abilities that just recharge over time, but with Dallas it only recharges when you get another down, and this is what that snowball effect is. You get a down, reveal, you get another down, reveal, get another down, reveal, and you can snowball it on that way. His actual ability though is target finder, and what this does is you activate it, you snap your fingers, and then you reveal one enemy on the map, the closest enemy to you. Now this is countered by the perk Cloaked. If another enemy rogue does buy that, they will not pop up, but it will just find the closest enemy that does not have Cloaked. This can be fantastic gaining early information for your team, but can also be kind of deceptive because it shows you the closest person without Cloaked, meaning if there's somebody close with Cloaked, you won't be able to find them and you might trick yourself into a false sense of security, so you have to watch out for that. Looking now onto his weapons, his first primary weapon is the HRM30KS, which is a very high-powered assault rifle, doing a lot of body damage and headshot damage, but with a very slow fire rate. Its time to kill averages out okay, but it is a heavy hitter, but a slow firer. As you upgrade this to tier 1, you increase the damage range, you then increase its hip fire accuracy at tier 2, and then at tier 3 you suppress its fire and reduce its recoil. Now this gun only has a 20 round mag and it is capped at 20 rounds, meaning you'll never get higher than that. His other weapon is the Devotion, which is a very high damage lever action DMR. This does a lot of damage, but again has got a slow fire rate and a lot of bounce on the shots, so you have to be really accurate with it when you're shooting it. Its first upgrade allows you to increase its bullet penetration. The second upgrade allows to increase magazine size from 6 to 8 and a faster reload speed ever so slightly, and the last upgrade nullifies its damage drop off, meaning it basically has infinite range. It'll do the same damage across all the ranges. This is a good weapon because it only requires one body shot and one headshot to get a 2-shot kill, but is not as effective as the MXR because of the fire rate, and the MXR generally is just a lot more consistent than this weapon. I find this weapon is kind of hard to handle, so you have to play with it a lot to get used to it. Going on to his secondary weapons though, we have the LW6 Revolver, which is the only one of its kind. It is basically a magnum within the game. As you upgrade this, you increase its damage range and you increase its hip fire accuracy and reduce its recoil at tier 2. This is a very high damage weapon, a good pistol for the pistol rounds, but really not going to be relying on this too much past when you get your primary weapon. Unlike the Executioner, which you can pull out sometimes for good damage, or the Spitfire, which you can use for close range, the Revolver you don't tend to pick up or use past round 1. His other secondary weapon is the Throwing Axe, which of course is a melee weapon, the fast throwing one, the one that is very good for throwing because of its throw speed that you can upgrade it to at tier 1, and then at tier 2 you increase its throwing damage to 150, meaning it's a one-shot kill on everyone but full health shark over the hill. Dallas's weapons are meh in my opinion. They're very good for long range and very big hitters if you're able to hit your shot. He really rewards good accuracy, but it's a very slow fire rate. In the current meta of either SMGs up in your face, the HRM will not compete with that, or the better DMRs, which the Devotion can't keep up with. He's just a bit lackluster at the moment in my opinion, but let's get into his gadgets. His first gadget is the EMP, and this is quite good, but not super amazing. If it hits a player, it will stop them being able to use their abilities and kind of mess with their HUD and UI. And if it hits some piece of equipment like a Ronin knife or a trench barbed wire, it will destroy it. It does not destroy Anvil Wall though, it just does good damage to it. It will also disrupt Saint Drone if you throw it at someone who's being revived by it. As you upgrade this to tier 1, you increase the EMP duration, and at tier 2, you gain the ability to have a second one. His second gadget is the Incendiary Grenade, which is a very good piece of equipment. You throw it down, it creates a lingering pool of fire, which does really good damage, 10 per tick, and can actually burn through walls if you get the right angle on it. As you go with this tier 1, you increase the radius of it, and at tier 2, you increase the fire duration. In terms of my favourite weapon for him, I would personally recommend the HRM. The reason for this is it's just a bit better at all the different viable ranges, whereas the Devotion is kind of only good at long range, and even then, you know, it's very hard to hit that shot, and if they get anywhere towards mid-range of you, you're going to suffer to an AR. Looking at his perks now, he has in the 4000 category Padded Steps, he has Berserker at 6500, he has Stalker and Bounce Back, and at 10,000 he has Headstrong and Replenish. My personal favourites here are Bounce Back for the increased health regeneration. Because you fight at long ranges, a lot of times the kills aren't that easy to get off and you'll take a lot of damage in return. So having Bounce Back to heal up quickly and then re-engage that fight is quite good. Headstrong I think is also a good perk because you gain additional health and that's always a good advantage. Replenish is good because your weapons have very low ammo, and so when you get a down in link with your passive as well, you get that snowball effect of then having more ammo and fully equipped ammo. And I also really like padded steps for him, just because, you know, he is longer range. He may have to sneak around corners at some point just to get behind enemies, and padded steps is really good for this. In front of you now is his upgrade priority that I think is best when you're in-game for Dallas, and of course I put the high priority, the interchangeables, and the low priority as usual, with the rounds next to it on the left-hand side, so you can see the likely round you're likely to purchase this on based on the amount of money you averagely get per game. First round, I would recommend either buying the Incendiary or EMP. The only time I would recommend buying the EMP is if you're against a trench, and that is basically trench only. You want to deal with that barbed wire, you want to get it away, and the EMP is great for this. So if there's a trench on the enemy team, I buy EMP. If not, I buy Incendiary. Then you want to be getting your primary weapon of choice. For me, is the HRM, and then if you have a bit of spare money at any point and you bought the EMP first, that's when you can then buy the Incendiary. But if you bought the Incendiary first because there's no trench, don't then buy the EMP. I don't think it's worth it. In terms of going into the interchangeables and the later rounds, what would I recommend doing? I would say your first perk you want to get is Bounce Back. Then you want to probably pick up the Axe if you get that amount of money and you're comfortable using it. Then start upgrading your weapon. I think he's very weapon focused, and getting the additional upgrades for it is really useful as his perks are a little bit lackluster. But once you have that upgrade, then you can start looking at getting Headstrong, as I would say is the next best perk, or if you can't quite afford it, buy Padded Steps, because that is a really good perk as well. If you then have a lot of excess money, fully upgrading the Incendiary where you can is really good, or getting a Replenish if as sort of a last resort of good items to buy would be a good one. And then the things I don't think are very viable are the axe upgrades, pistol upgrades, and the other perks that I haven't mentioned. Let's talk about his playstyle and start with his ability and how this works and my recommendations for it. The first thing I want to mention is that you do have to be really careful of Cloaked even from round 1. People can put their initial money into Cloaked at the start of round 1, so you do have to be careful. You don't want to be deceived by this. His ability is really good at finding someone on the map, and if you are getting caught out by it, or you're just not aware or not listening to the audio cues, this is not going to be ideal for you. You want to use this for information for you and your team, but you don't want to rely on it solely because it can be wrong. But as I said, it's really good information for your team. If you wait a couple seconds off of the initial jump when you all land and the teams are going to their separate sides and then use it, you'll find out which side they go to just before your team getting engaged in that fight. It gives them a heads up, it gives you a heads up so you can start rotating if you're in the wrong position, or you can set up a defensive position if you know they're about to come around the corner to you. It's really good to get that initial information, and honestly this is the best use of it. I wouldn't hold this much longer than that personally, because you just want that initial information, and then if you get down, that's when you can start snowballing it, but it's not really worth it. Good teams are able to counter or just not care about Dallas because it does a few things that are kind of negative to Dallas. The main disadvantage of it is it actually tells the enemy team what side of the map you're on. Based on who gets revealed on the comp, you know whether he's on your left-hand side or your right-hand side, as long as there's no Cloaked, and you can kind of figure out his positioning based off who gets revealed. This can be kind of annoying, but they can also play around with it by ensuring that the person they don't care who gets revealed, and that person can fake going somewhere else. They can sit in mid, wait for you to reveal them because you're most likely close to them in mid, and then they start going to the wrong side, baiting the enemy team or your team to go that way, and then their teammates go around and plant at the other site. You have to be careful about this reveal. As I said, use it as great information, but do not solely trust it because better teams will be able to deceive it. I have mentioned it, but Dallas is best played at longer ranges because of his weapons. He's not very good at up-close fights. You can get some really good shots off at close range hip fire with the HRM, but it's going to be nowhere near as fast as an SMG. So even if you're hitting your headshots, the SMGs are going to burn through you too quickly for it to really matter. The K30 can kind of compete with an SMG, but the HRM really cannot. I personally, in terms of firing these weapons, would recommend some sort of tap fire at the very long ranges because of how big the recoil is. It's basically the equivalent of like a big heavy AK from other games that you might recognize. You fire it, really, really big damage, but really big kick. So you have to be aware of that. Another big tip I actually have for you is if you're in a coordinated comp and you can sort of play around with this, it's hard, especially if you're against good comp versus good comp, but if you're just playing pubs with your friends, you can try and coordinate Dallas getting the kills and getting the downs because then he can reactivate it. It does not recharge off of a kill and elim, it only off of a down. So you have to be the one to get that final shot. So if you can play around with that at all, like if it's a 2v1, so one person get a couple shots off, then he can get the last shot off. Play around with it if you can, but at the end of the day, get the kill no matter what, just so you don't lose those fights. Personally, I don't think Dalllas is in a fantastic place in the game at the moment. His reveal is a bit lackluster against good teams. His weapons are a bit lackluster compared to their counterparts. He's still very fun to play. His personality is very funny, but he is not, as a rogue, very good at the moment. He has his place for sure, and if you're very accurate with your weapons, hitting headshots all the time, he's going to absolutely dominate in terms of damage, but I do not think for the average player and for most players he's going to be the best character to pick up right now. I think, of course, as the game changes and tweaks are made, he'll become strong again because he was very popular at the start of the game, but I don't think at the current state of the game he's very good. Okay then guys, that's going to take us to the end of the video. If you did enjoy it, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. You can also come follow me on twitch.tv/radbargaming to see live game commentaries, guides, Q&As and scrims and tournaments. All the links you need for that are down in the description below, but for now guys, I hope you have a fantastic day, and remember, be loyal, be brave, be relentless, and I'll catch you in the next video.